Hello everyone and welcome to the 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫 Gamescast, episode 98. Today we're going to be talking about a rumor of some canceled Nintendo 3DS games that will possibly become Nintendo Switch games. Don't really know how to word it. As part of the discussion, we're going to be talking about some 3DS games that we would like to see come to the Nintendo Switch eventually. Kind of speculate on what some of those canceled 3DS games could have been. And we also have an interview with JJ, or some of you all may know him from his username, Gamer with Gains. The introduction. JJ, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for some of those who may not know who you are?
Sure. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people right now either watching or listening to this now who have no idea who. They're probably looking at this like, who the heck is this guy? Like, what?
Is this guy?
Why?
He's got
He looks like a Goron. So anyway, the thing is, I'm JakeJames Lugo. Okay, everybody calls me JJ for short. I'm a games journalist / games media person / content creator / writer / podcaster and all this other stuff all rolled up into one. I do a lot of stuff. I do a lot of things and hardly anybody has really known about it. But basically, I do a lot of videos on YouTube, like almost every single week. I review games constantly. I talk about games. I love being part of the conversation about games. I do podcasts every week as well. I have a weekly podcast show called Boot Up, a video game podcast with my friend Taylor Lyles, where we talk about all the gaming news and stuff. In addition to that, I'm also an IGN freelancer. I write guides for IGN, and I've written guides already for IGN at this point over the last 2 to almost 3 years, and I've even done a review for IGN. I've done also videos for IGN as well, a couple times here and there. But in addition to that, I'm also the senior editor of thecoalition.com. I write reviews, I do videos, unboxings, again, interviews. I go to events like E3, PAX, PSX, Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con. The list goes on. Bottom line, I do a lot of stuff, and guys should really know about it because there's a lot of dope stuff. But again, it's a lot of great things that I know a lot of you guys that are into video games really love. So that's what I do. I'm out here doing things.
Yeah, it's you're really everywhere is the best way that I could put it. But you mentioned your podcast. Where and when, I guess, like what day of the week, what time could people tune into that if they're interested in checking out new episodes?
The podcast, it's called Boot Up, a video game podcast. You could actually listen to it in a couple spots. You can listen to it on Anchor. You can listen to it on Spotify. We have an iTunes version coming out very soon. Again, we've been trying to wait for iTunes to get their stuff together. It's just like, again, the whole process, putting it out there, it just takes a minute. But it goes up every Monday morning, early in the morning too. So like around 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time maybe, or 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It depends on when Taylor uploads it. But by 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you guys will have your podcast for the entire week that covers all the gaming news. We recently just had an interview with one of the the League of Legends players that was banned not too long ago with Blizzard and all that ongoing news and stuff. We try to get a bunch of cool people on there every once in a while. We talk a lot about gaming news. We talk about a lot of gaming related topics. We even talked a little bit about gaming journalism, about etiquette, interacting with other games media people, covering games, the idea of reviewing games and doing all this other stuff that us games journalist people would usually do outside of like what you would see from YouTubers and other content creators. We get deep into it and stuff, but it's a fun show. It lasts a little bit under an hour, so it doesn't take too long to kind of dive into, especially if you're doing a commute or something, if you're going to work, or if, again, you're just hanging around doing stuff. You can listen to it and just get a whole bunch of great gaming discussion in there.
All right, and you mentioned going into the etiquette of video game journalism and stuff, and you have a lot of local conventions, which you also mentioned. Yeah. But you go to a lot of different local conventions and some of the bigger conventions. And what are some of the panels that if someone were to see you at one of your panels, what are some of the stuff that you talk about, or some of the people that you also have on your panel?
Oh, I do, again, a bunch of stuff, man. It's a ridiculous amount of stuff. Like, I've been going to conventions throughout I'm going on now 10 years in my career in the games media and games journalism, like getting close to the decade by this January. And out of those 10 years, like, again, a good number of them, I've been attending events, both locally and nationally. Again, going to like PAX, going to PSX, E3, etc. For the local conventions, when I'm hosting panels or when I've been a guest in a few spots, I'll usually host panels, talking about what we do and exactly how to do it. Like one of the things I found that was interesting was that a lot of people that usually host panels like this don't always give the information of what they do and how to do it to the people that want to get into this stuff. They're usually either holding it too close to the chest, or they're always like complaining about how hard it is or how tough it is, or about other stuff that might not be something that people care about when they're listening to this. I try to give the information up front, and I try to make it fun, and I try to make it interesting, and more importantly than not, try to actually have a conversation with the people, a real conversation and a real discussion with them, so that way they could get something out of it. Not just in the panels I do, but in all the content that I'm a part of, my videos, my podcasts. I try to, be consistent with that all the time. But at the panels themselves, like I'll do stuff like that. When I was just at LumiCon 2019 not too long ago, I had 3 panels that I was hosting, one of which was an epic Final Fantasy panel. It was a fan panel celebrating everything about Final Fantasy, talking about the entire series. And I was even giving stuff away. I had a bunch of stuff, including Final Fantasy themed, goodies, like themed decks from the TCG game. I even gave away a free copy and a figure of Life is Strange Before the Storm. I gave away a bunch of stuff. I had even a foam sword for Final Fantasy 14 that I got at PAX one year for Heaven Sword, one of the expansions, and I gave it away to some lucky people that just came out and asked questions and was part of the discussion. I do stuff like that because I feel like it makes it fun. I feel like it makes it interesting. It doesn't make it so like up on your high horse and stuff. It makes it something that people want to be a part of, but also feel like they're going to get something out of when they go to them.
Yeah, you. I believe you follow the same people. I'm sure by now everyone knows who they are, follows them. But the kind of funny people with Greg Miller and everyone.
I know them.
Yeah, they're the people that I'm sure a lot of people that watch the podcast know. They're the people that inspired me to start my YouTube channel and everything. And if they don't, that's obviously where the Game Over Jesse, Game Over Greggy thing came from, his username. And I was lucky enough, I think maybe I just caught him on a nice day or something. I have no idea, but he came on no, I wouldn't really say it was a podcast at the time. It was before I started any of the actual podcasts, but he just came on for an interview on the YouTube channel a long, long time ago. And then we kind of stayed in touch ever since, and he was one of the first people, but he's one of the favorite people personally to me, that just because of all of the inspiration and stuff that he gave. Because just talking about something similar to what you're talking about is he would go into detail on like how he got started in the video game industry and reporting and stuff like that, and he'd give basically his life story of like how he like went to, ever since he was a little kid, he'd get like EGM in the mail and other video game magazines, and it would get him to where he would want to write about video games. Like people would ask him whenever he was a kid, like, what do you want to do for a living? And whenever he found out that like, oh wait, people get paid to write about video games, like they're playing video games and people are paying them, that's what they're doing for a job. And that got him to where when people asked him what he wanted to do, then he started saying like that is what he wanted to do. And he took journalism classes through like high school and everything, and then he went to college and graduated and everything, and then I guess he got into that little slump that a lot of people get into after college, to where like it doesn't work out for them, and he ended up oddly enough, kind of a bad story, but don't let it stop you from going to college if that's what you want to do. But his story was he studied all through high school, and he went to one of the #1 ranked journalism schools in America, or maybe even the world at the time. And after he got out of college, he applied for all of these different larger video game companies and even some smaller video game journalism companies like IGN and other websites that was writing about games at the time. And he ended up not being able to get a job anywhere except at his local, his local newspaper or whatever. And then eventually he was able to get a job at IGN. And then he went on to start Kinda Funny after so many years, and that was his story. But what is your story? And I bring all that up because you mentioned that you knew him, and it kind of goes into what I was asking you with how you got started in gaming journalism and stuff. But I also want to ask, because I mentioned he was one of my favorite guests that I've had on. Who are some of, like, if you had to name your three favorite guests that you were able to have on?
There's a lot, but I could definitely narrow them down to three. I mean, obviously, if I had to touch his top five, he'd be amongst one of them. Because again, Greg Miller's like a giant teddy bear. I've always said that over the years. Every time I've met, he's always nice. For whatever reason, he always gives hugs. You know, because he's like a giant teddy bear. Again, he looks like a giant like grizzly bear. That's the best thing I could give him. Because again, it goes with the color of his hair.
Oddly enough, you mentioned grizzly bear, and I just mentioned this because grizzly bear and the hairiness and everything that kind of goes with it. But earlier he posted a picture on Instagram where he shaved the Batman logo into his chest, so he just has like a hairy Batman logo on his chest. It's great. But anyways,
but he's like that. Yeah. He's very eccentric like that. Like again, it's just his dynamite personality. He's always friendly. He's always cool. And again, he has a lot of wisdom with a lot of the stuff that he's done, a lot of his experience, you know, covering games and being part of, you know, the greater gaming community and what he's done. And another thing too, before I get into the thing that you asked me about, was that he has one of the best speeches at the Game Awards I've ever seen, and it was at a great time because he did that, you know, because he was the one that campaigned for him wanting to win that year for Gamer of the Year, or like, or, you know, whatever, the internet, like they chose Gamer Stories, whatever.
Yeah, he was going up against PewDiePie and a bunch of other people.
PewDiePie and all the
everyone was like, no one knows who you are. You're not going to win. PewDiePie has like 50 million subscribers.
Here's the crazy thing. Had he not won, none of those other people there would have ever given the speech that he gave. And he gave the best one, giving it back and putting the shine back on the people that make the games. And I thought that was super classy and also super humble. And also it showed an example to all those other people afterwards, which some people afterwards in subsequent shows started copying and started trying to do the same thing. But it was like, okay, we see you.
Yeah. But, it was giving for those who don't know, it was giving a thank you to the people in the credits after you play the game. Like the people who work a week straight underpaid.
I think it was for Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah. I think it was basically for the people that work like a week straight, underpaid, working overtime, just to make sure the bush in the game or a tree or something looks the way that it needs to look and behaves the way it needs to behave. The people, like, people think of voice actors and producers and stuff, but no one thinks of the person. It's like, does this tree leaf look believable? Like, do I need to make it more realistic or more cell shady? How do I do this? But it's basically the people that work on that stuff that never get recognition. But go on with what you were saying.
The thing is like, besides him, obviously, but if I had to choose the three just personally for me, one of which, obviously, for a lot of people that watched G4 back in the day, Adam Sessler, one of my biggest inspirations. I was religious in watching X-Play all the time. Him and Morgan Webb, two of my biggest inspirations.
That's not an adult show.
You know, as far as, you know, covering games and just like really talking about games, because covering games is the exact same thing as just having a discussion about games with your friends. You know, the difference is it's either on camera on TV or on camera on the internet or on a podcast, audio, or whatever else, on YouTube, whatever the big choice may be. You know, it's still the same exact idea, but he really set an example for me. And the privilege I had at my first E3, I got to meet him. That was really hit me at a moment, because I saw him at E3 during the Ubisoft conference, like right before, because we were all going to the Ubisoft conference that year. And then I saw him afterwards at an after party where we finally got to talk and say what's up and stuff. And at that point, it was like that turning point for me where, besides seeing these people on TV and seeing these people in content, you know, that they make, now I was amongst them as peer. And that was a really big step for me. That was really humbling. I had a lot of reverence for something like that. The other one, obviously, also would be Victor Lucas. I mean, anybody that doesn't know who Victor Lucas is, he was also part of G4. He was on Judgment Day with Dami Tallarico. Victor not only did that, he also runs Electric Playground, EPN, over in Canada right now. And he's a huge, I'm a huge fan of his work. He's another dude that's really humble. He came on my podcast show on my YouTube channel a while back, you know, and he didn't have to do that. He was just, he wanted to talk about games. He wanted to talk about what he does with EPN. I was like, come on, that would be amazing. And we had a fantastic conversation. Now, every time I see him at an event, I always make it a point to go say hello to him, because, again, he didn't have to do something like that. And it was something that not only showed me a level of class that, you know, sometimes you don't always see in this industry from a lot of professionals here and there, but also because he had been in the game for so long, like doing this type of stuff, being part of the television station, talking about video games, and now he's doing stuff on the internet, or again, still doing stuff technically with TV, with EPN in Canada. But it was like someone that I felt was like super real and super genuine being a part of all this, and I thought that was awesome. And then finally, the last person, for top 3 that I can mention was Colin Moriarty. Colin Moriarty is, again, he was one of the founding members of Kind of Funny, but he was also at IGN with Greg Miller. That was his boy for the longest time, where, again, they were Podcasts Beyond for like years. I used to listen to that religiously as well.
Yeah, they were also living together for a long time. Yeah,
they were living together, which was even crazier. Like, they were like a dynamic duo for like a very long time. And with Colin specifically, again, that was another person that after following him for years, I finally got to talk with him, see him in person, have conversations. I had a very real conversation with Colin during New York Comic Con one year. I think it was my second New York Comic Con that I went to professionally. And we were at a bar on First Avenue in the city, and we were just talking. We were having drinks, and we were just talking. And it was just, talking about gaming stuff, talking about covering games, talking about the news at the time that was going on, the big topics of discussion. And it was just like really insane, like how real he was with me. Again, it was just like talking to another friend that you had just met. It just happened to be someone that had hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter and social media and worked for the biggest gaming website in the entire world in some fashion. And the other thing that was really cool about that for me, which really kind of not only stuck with me for a very long time, but also kind of, pushed me to do better and more content out there, was that Colin like really showed me that it's okay to be open and blunt a little bit about your opinions about games, not necessarily be shy or kind of like, a little bit kind of reserved when it comes to talking about games and, having that conversation about them. He was one of those people that on Podcast Beyond was saying like, okay, this is how you get into the industry, but also try to be as genuine. You don't have to play every single game. You don't have to like every single game. You have to just have an opinion about it, your own formulated opinion about it, and actually contribute to the conversation as a whole. And not only makes your own unique voice and your own unique, perspective on games, but it also helps the industry and helps the community as a whole, because you're contributing something positive, whether it's a critical or something that's praising out there. You're actually contributing to the greater whole, which is a cool thing. And that always stuck with me. And again, he also came on my podcast at one point, and he didn't have to do that. And it was another one of those humbling experiences. Is like, man, like you actually care about my opinion. It's like, and again, I followed you for years as like a student of the game, and I always thought that was very, very cool.
Yeah, he had a really, really great panel at one, I forgot what kind of convention it was, but it was just called Your Favorite Game Sucks. And it's talking about all these games where everyone's like, oh, you need to play this game, it's really, really good, it's one of the best games ever. And then he just, like, it was him and other people talking about games that other people would recommend. It's like, oh, this game's amazing, and then why it sucks. But before we get to the next person on your list, 𝐓𝐷, about 5 minutes ago, got very, very excited, and we have 2 donations for Daniel. Yeah. So 𝐓𝐷,
that's not for me.
Talk about what it was that you were so excited about.
Okay, so Daniel posted the link in the chat, but if you haven't clicked on it, please click on it, because Jorge just did the most amazing fan art I have ever seen in my life. I am blown away.
Are you able to put it up on the screen? It's all of us. It's all of us.
Oh, it is all of us.
It's all of us as the champions of Breath of the Wild, and I am loving it. So he did the group one, and then all of us individually.
Am I Rivali?
So
no, you're Daruk.
I'm Daruk.
I'm Rivali. Ilya, or the Geek Apprentice, she is Mifa, and 𝐓𝐷 here is Urbosa. And it's just incredible. Actually, also good choice.
Ilya looks like she's straight out of Dragon Ball. I think we
had this conversation officially on our podcast before of who we would be based on who we are.
Yeah.
So this is like confirmed. Like it was a super chat. Like someone broke it down. So Jorge, thank you so much, because that is so amazing. And I like legitimately almost started crying. Like I think you guys watched me freak out for a solid. I don't know how long I was freaking out for, but like literal like jaw drop.
This face on Jesse here. I've seen him make this face in real life. So I've seen that face.
It's so good. Okay, anyways. So that's my piece. If you guys haven't checked that out, do. We've pretty much all shared it probably by now, and I definitely posted it in our personal Discord and tagged Geek in it right away, and I was like, Geek, look at this.
Just got it.
Love it. It looks like a drinking face.
It might be.
Like when I was, it looks like it's based off the picture where I'm trying to pick you up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Like Jesse's about to lift me right into the air. Like he does. And we got 2 super chats, both from Denny here, because he sent a super chat. And I was like, send us a question with your super chat. So we'll answer it. And then he just sent another question, or he sent us the question, but with another super chat, which is not what I meant. But thank you, Denny. So he asked, what are you guys most excited about for Sword/Shield? I'm assuming he means Pokemon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to say just like making just a gigantic, just doing the whole Gigantamax thing just is hilarious. I just make the Pokemon big.
How big
that's
will...
the new power.
Who is it? Wailord? Wailord? Is it Wailord?
Wailmer?
No, it's like a giant whale Pokemon.
Yeah.
But in Pokemon battles, it's like the size of a normal Pokemon, but it's supposed to be like hundreds of feet long.
So what
like,
if you Gigantamax that?
Yeah, like it's already supposed to be like the size of the gym or the Colosseums that they battle out. But JJ, as our guest, what are you most excited for with Pokemon?
Well, I would say that because I'm a big Squirtle/Blastoise fan, and I will hope that every Pokemon has a gigantic version of it, and I would love to see like a gigantic Blastoise but look like a Mobile Suit Gundam, because I say that's the Mobile Suit Gundam of the Pokemon world. Just give it like hydro pumps atop of hydro pumps atop of hydro pumps, and just call it MGS or MSG. Like it'd be absolutely hilarious. But besides that, I would say just again, some of the more like wild characters, because again, even though as cutesy as Pokemon can be, it has some wild characters with a lot of personality, a lot of style. You have to give them a lot of credit for that whenever they have like the different character designs and stuff. And I'm always curious to see like how crazy and like how out there they could really go with them, whether it's Team Rocket, Team Magma, the hero or your rival, any gym leaders, the Elite Four. I always figure like they could be really cool looking. So I'm interested to see like what other cool ones we could see pop up, or what other ones people are going to really gravitate towards or start doing like fan art of.
Did you see the in Ultra Sun? I think they were introduced in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which for the record, that's what I'm most excited about is Ultra Sword and Ultra Shield when they finally get announced.
Okay.
No, that's a bad joke. But anyways, there's like Xurkitree or something like that. The Ultra Beasts. Like there's one is like halfway inspired by the clown, and then half inspired by just fireworks in general, just like how they explode and like the balls of like colors and polka dots and stuff, which is also why people think it's based off of it, because his costume is like very, very similar to like the polka dots and stuff. And then it's just a very, very creepy looking Pokemon. I have a video that I've been working on for like a month that I've just been halfway lazy and halfway busy on. But it compares Pokemon that could replace or could be Zelda bosses, and it uses that Pokemon specifically for like Majora's Revenge or something like that, like whatever the final form of Majora is that you fight, where he has like the whips coming out of his hands and stuff, and it just looks really creepy
and like golem looking thing.
Yeah, so it's just very, very creepy looking Pokemon. So I'm interested to see if they do something like that in this game, or if they dial it back some, because in the last Pokemon games, like they literally went into outer space and other dimensions, and there were a bunch of alien Pokemon and stuff. Like they weren't even called Pokemon, they were Ultra Beasts is what they were referred to as. So I'm wondering if they'll dial that back, or if they'll just keep going crazier and bigger with it. Yeah, Majora's Wrath, Ivan in the chat says. But Choobs, what was your favorite thing that you're looking forward to in the games?
Every time the topic of Pokemon comes up, I get really uncomfortable really fast, and it's because I've never beaten a Pokemon game. Never beaten one.
You're not missing much.
How do you... Okay, so how do you classify beating a Pokemon game? Is it completing the full Pokédex, catching all the Pokemon in that game, beating the Elite Four?
Like maybe 3 gyms.
Okay.
Beating the Elite Four or getting all the gym badges?
I've done maybe 3 gyms, and only in Pokemon Yellow.
So you're like Ash when everyone else is Gary. If you guys remember the meme where it's like Ash is talking about getting some of the 8 different gems, and Gary's like, I got all 10 or all 12 of the 8 gems in Kanto.
I'm like that person that's never going to truly win. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here to hang out and have fun. Yeah. But in all seriousness, I did see some leaks of what the evolutions for the starters are going to look like. So hopefully, I'm like low-key hoping that there might be some truth to that. But at the other time, like I'd love to experience that myself. I know that I will because I'm gonna have to demo the game, and I'm gonna look like a real fool if I don't actually play the game before I demo it. So.
Do it. Your contract with Nintendo depends on it.
I know. Okay, don't talk to me about Pokemon anymore.
Just give her some Squirtle Squad glasses and she's good. She can pass.
Squirtle Squad
Perfect.
glasses.
Yeah.
Squirtle Squad, yeah.
So going back to you, JJ, what is say one more person that's on your list?
One more person, I guess I could say. Another one that I could say that's really shown me a lot, especially on a lot of the stuff that she's done over the years, because I followed her, and again, early in my YouTube like interview segments and stuff, and she didn't have to do that. This was before she blew up, but Andre Rene showed me that again, there's an elegance, there's also a class, and a certain level of professionalism that you could portray without having to compromise your personality or having to compromise like your unique traits and stuff, because she's been on camera a lot, she's talked about games a lot, she's worked in freelance for a lot of different, like not just some of the few that you probably have seen her in, besides What's Good Games, but she's done a lot of different stuff over the years, and I've always admired that. She has a good hustle and also a good level of like, again, professionalism, a good level of like friendliness, humor. It's just some of that stuff, you notice things like that, if you like following a lot of different aspects of the industry and seeing a lot of different individuals, those are little things you pick up on. It's like, oh, this is pretty cool, this is something like I could adopt into my own type of like my own story, my own style and such. And I always appreciated that from her. And again, she's just fun to be around. So that's one of the few other women, I guess I could say, that I've really taken a lot of examples. Again, I'm a guy, but like as a professional and someone that wants to be part of this industry, it would be her, it would be Alana Pierce, it'd be Morgan Webb, a lot of different people like that all over the place that have shown me little things, over the year.
Yeah, it's, for those who don't know, she was also part of the Kind of Funny crew for a while, and I first knew her.
Them, yeah.
Well, she was a host on the Kind of Funny Games Daily for a while. She's moved on from that since then for about a month now, I guess, maybe 2 months. But I found out who she was because every time I would go into GameStop, she was the main host that they had for like talking about upcoming gaming news and prices.
She did that for a long time.
Yeah, so that's how I knew who she was. And then she started doing guest appearances on Kind of Funny, and then she just joined the team for a while, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, because I was already a fan of her from I remember working at GameStop and just like hearing her voice constantly. So then whenever I was listening to a podcast from Kind of Funny and her voice was there, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Because now, instead of like being annoyed by her voice, not because it's an annoying voice or anything, but because it's the same promotions and commercials playing 1,000 times a day while you're working at GameStop, it's finally like something different coming from her. So yeah, there's I think she's one of the few people that like had anything to do with Kind of Funny that I haven't been able to meet or talk to. I had a chance one time, but it looked like she was busy, and it wasn't like at a convention or anything. Well, it kind of was at a convention. She was like outside she's like walking really somewhere, cool. And I was like, well, she's probably busy. I'll just say hi another time. But Daniel, Tubes, do you guys have anything that you would like to ask JJ?
Yeah, well, I'll start as so I mean, obviously you go by JJ and you work through all these out, but the handle specifically that you like, especially when we met you at E3, that you introduced yourself as Gamer with Gains. So where did that handle, like everyone's got kind of a story of where their internet handle kind of came from. So what's the story behind, other than having gains, I guess?
Well, that's part is true. That is actually true. It's a weird, funny story because that wasn't my original handle that I first had when I started getting online and started doing stuff for YouTube was Venomous Fat Man. And that handle was a stupid name because I couldn't think of a handle to go by that was catchy enough. So I took a combination of, or a variation of names on my favorite Marvel character at the time and one of my favorite Street Fighter characters at the time, which was Venom and E-Honda. So I just played around with words and made Venomous Fat Man. And then after a while, I thought like, okay, yeah, this is a really stupid name. Like, let me come up with a better concept for a channel to actually do different stuff with. And originally my YouTube channel was going to be a blending of fitness and gaming, but in a different type of way that I didn't see done online before, because at the time, years ago, earlier in my career, I want to say over 5 to 7 years ago, I want to say, where I saw a lot of different channels were trying to implement gaming into like their health and fitness stuff, but it was very gimmicky. It was almost very stereotypical and almost insulting in a lot of ways. I was like, oh, so this person's a gamer. They're working out. They're playing Call of Duty all the time. They're talking this way. They're doing these certain things. They're trying to appeal to that certain demographic. I was like, no, that's not what I want to do, because I'm a gamer that is a little bit much more broader and open. I'm a jack of all trades when it comes to gaming, master of all almost. And the reason being is because I like going to different genres and not just to one thing, because I love games as an art form. I love games as like a medium that I could just enjoy, not just, play it and be part of it and implement it into things just to get a, clout from everybody else or get approval from everybody else. That's what I was seeing a lot of. So with the channel, I tried to do a lot of fitness, like working out stuff and exercise stuff, and talk about things that could help benefit gamers in a way that would not only benefit their lives, but also be easy to adopt and easy to implement in different ways. One of the things I did, which is one of my biggest videos on my YouTube channel now, is that, different ways to kind of like warm up your gaming hands and prevent your hands from sweating, as you're gaming when you're holding your controller. And I talked about different stuff like that. And so for some reason, that ended up being one of my biggest videos after an extended period of time. Like when it first went up, people didn't care about it, but then over time, I guess people would start to discover it, and it got over 150K at least last time I checked. And then I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But again, the rest of the video content that I put up on there didn't really work out. People didn't really want to see working out videos or care about, exercise or health and wellness videos. They cared more about gaming. And that was the thing that was really driving a lot of YouTube at the time, because then you start to see guys like PewDiePie, like Markiplier, like Angry Joe, and all these other guys that were into gaming start to really blow up. And they were doing other things that were more focused on gaming with their own personalities. And I was like, okay, I've been on YouTube for a long time now and set off. So let me change things up. And then I just started focused strictly on gaming and my thoughts and my opinions and my perspective about video games. And then obviously trying to implement everything else, which is where I'm at now, which, I've kind of abandoned those two usernames because I thought they were whack. I thought they were really stupid. So I just put my own name into it. And that was another thing, because for being on the internet, and I think you guys can relate to as well at some point, it was very intimidating to put your own name out there, very intimidating to put your own personality, your own persona out there as you as an individual. This is why a lot of people earlier in YouTube and other days of the internet really only went by aliases. And that was something that I kind of tried to do at one point, but I was like, you know what? If I'm going to really dive into all this, I'm going to put all myself into this. So I might as well put my name out there and become, somewhat of a public figure when it comes to this type of stuff. And be it as it may, whatever comes, we'll deal with it from there. And that's where we're at right now. So again, I just put my name out there and just put myself out there as opposed to just a silly alias.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple things that your story reminds me of. I know that was your question to Daniel, so I apologize. Yeah. But I have a friend who he has a similar YouTube channel, but he started a YouTube channel for similar ideas. He went to college for like philosophy and like a lot of mental health stuff, but then he also works as like a physical trainer and stuff, and he's really into just like mental well-being and mental health and stuff, as well as physical health and everything. And he first hit me up a long time ago to talk about Zelda on my channel, because he had a lot of he wanted to talk about the philosophy of Zelda, was the way that he put it. And whenever I started talking to him, his display picture at the time was him, and he had like a pet parrot, and he was just like making a muscle with his parrot on his muscle, and I'm like, his arm is as big as my head. Like, this is insane. But he had like a crazy, it was the only time that I've ever seen someone be able to perfectly balance being able to like have their gaming life, their work life, their fitness life, and everything all like perfectly balanced to where like he's able to work out and do everything that he had a passion for. He had time to like play the games and stuff that he wanted to, and I'm like, he has his schedule down packed. But it really reminded me of his YouTube channel. I think ironically his YouTube was Lazy Lion or something like that at the time.
Lazy.
Yeah,
the irony there.
Yeah,
really, seriously.
And then yeah, that's what was the other thing that I was trying to think of?
No, man.
That is funny. I'm
I
not
don't
gonna
know,
lie.
but Daniel, you mentioned he introduced himself as Gamer with Gains, and it was for a while. Like the reason that I know who you are is because I think at first I knew you from Instagram, maybe. Because
I think I commented on one of your things because I followed you and I watched point, and then again we had mutual friends,
yeah,
you know, in different avenues and stuff. So that's how we connected. And eventually we met because I was like, oh hey,
yeah,
hey, how you doing?
you messaged and asked like where we were so we could meet up because we were both at E3, and there was. I don't know, there was quite a few people that was messaging to hang out and stuff or to meet up, and I was also messaging like randomly saying like, well, this is where we're at, if you want to say hi, come by and stuff. And then whenever I was able to meet you, and then everyone else was able to meet you and get introduced to you as well.
Yeah,
it kind of
up behind the Nintendo booth.
You rolled up on him on the Nintendo line.
Yeah,
He's waiting there to play Link's Awakening. I was like, what's good? How's it going?
No, I was gonna say it just sucks that like we didn't have time or like hang out after E3 or
next time.
After
next time we do
hours
it.
and
Next
stuff,
time we got to take you guys over to the Denny's that at E3, the
Denny's.
legendary Denny's. At E3. I always get poked fun at because of that, but there's a Denny's by the LA Convention Center that's like the most legendary Denny's of E3 because not only is the food good, but also because most of the people that are at E3, like Dez and like people that you would know, usually go to that Denny's, and somehow randomly they'll show up. So you'll see like a bunch of like Nintendo guys just go there for breakfast. It's like really fun.
That's almost how it was.
That's awesome.
You mentioned
I'm really conflicted because you just said Denny's and good food in the same sentence.
You have to understand, it's just that Denny's. It's not all Denny's. Okay, just want to make that clear for the people listening in the back. It's just that Denny's that's just special. I'm just saying.
I think I said that out loud, and my boyfriend gagged in the background.
It's like, oh God! It's like, no, tell him, assure him, this is a good Denny's.
Yeah, but earlier, like you mentioned that like all the people hanging out there, and then earlier you mentioned how Greg, every time that you meet him, he's like all huggable and lovable and stuff, and that's how it was. It was before like the night. No, it was a couple of nights before E3. We went to this bar in Hollywood called the Scum and Villainy Cantina.
Oh,
and it
man, I
says
wanna go there
Star
so
Wars.
bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, man.
Kevin Smith. I know about it because
So
Kevin Smith
cool.
always
The
podcasts
podcasts
there.
that they do there.
Yeah.
Sadly, he wasn't the night that we were there, but when we were there, one of our friends, Gibbs, he was in the chat earlier, he still might be, he was sitting on my side of the table, and he was like, oh, Jesse, isn't that Greg? And I'm like, no, it doesn't really look like him. But then, like, I'm used to seeing Greg from, like, his IGN days and podcasts and stuff, so I've seen him, like, a few times in person, but like, you don't really remember that. You just remember like how you're used to seeing him and stuff, which is like behind a desk, so you don't really see him. And he's lost a lot of weight since like he first started his podcast and stuff, so I didn't recognize him. But Gibbs was like, yeah, that's him. And then he came up and he noticed we were looking at him or something, and because he was just walking in, but he was there with the EA, because he hosted the EA panel the next morning, and he was there with the EA people, the producers and stuff on the.
You guys had your warm embrace.
Yeah. He was like, "I'm sorry, who are you guys again?" And I was like, "It's Jesse, Game Over Jesse." He was like, "Oh my god!" And then he gave the hug and everything.
It's the same name.
You just said Jesse, and then he's like, "Game Over Jesse."
Yeah,
like he made a connection there. So that was just a really cute moment.
That's how it always is at E3.
Yeah.
That's how it always is. And then the funny thing is how you mentioned that there's that bar right across the street, okay, at the other hotel from the LA Convention Center that everybody goes to. Everybody converges there because it's so close to the convention center. So like late at night, you know, when
Which place is it?
D3's cool. It's I think it's the Figaro. I believe it's literally right across the street from LA Live. And it's right there. Everybody that is at E3, everybody, literally everybody goes to that spot. So we'll go there late at night and you'll see people from IGN, from GameSpot, from Rock, Paper, Shotgun, Polygon, Way Forward, a bunch of YouTubers just randomly just hanging out, either having drinks, eating food, and just chilling out, because everybody's gone through the day of E3. And then when you're not working on content, you just want to chill because you only get to see some of these people like maybe once a year.
Yeah.
That's the spot to go to. And it's always a fun time with things like that. That's one of the best things about E3 besides the games and stuff. It's seeing those people in those moments because you guys just get to be real with each other for like, a couple hours.
Yeah. You're friends with her as well, but we always go to the same bar. No, it's not really. We don't go there for the bar, but we go there for like the actual food. No. We just go there for the actual food.
we bring the people there.
Yeah.
Oh, that place that's kind of expensive. That's right beside the where like Xbox is all set up.
Yeah. Holly.
Yard House. Oh, Yard House is that spot.
Holly Wolf took us there one night, and then every time that like we would go out to eat, we had a big get together with all of the Chamber of Sages people. For those who don't know, it's like Zeltic and Commonwealth Realm and Dr. Wily and a bunch of other people. And we had to meet up with some of our friends and people that were fans of the channel. And they we just had a big get together there. So, but I really like it because it has the best chicken sandwich that I've ever had. Sadly, Daniel won't be able to experience it because he's vegetarian.
They actually have good vegetarian food there. They have very good vegetarian.
They have a lot of good food there.
But I'm very
great drinks too.
If Holly is watching this, thank you
just
to
putting that out there.
Yeah. Thank you to Holly for introducing us to that place because I remember the first time after I ate there, on the way home, I was at the airport and I ordered a chicken sandwich because I was craving the chicken sandwich from that restaurant. So big thank you to.
It's not the same.
It was way more expensive and not nearly as good.
Yes. So we got a super chat from Jusek.
Yeah, he just gives a thumb up.
He goes
thumbs up.
Yeah, maybe he likes chicken sandwiches too.
Maybe.
That's what I'm talking about.
Choobs, do you have a question that you would like to?
Mr. JJ.
So I know when at E3, two people that really stuck out to me and really, it was like, wow, like they're so dedicated, so passionate. You and N64 Josh. I don't know how, but you two were the busiest people that I saw at E3. You were interviews, meeting with people, interviews, and it was like one after the other.
And more, by the way, that you didn't see. I mean, I'll tell you. There's more that I was doing on top of that.
Like N64 Josh just barely got his little Link figurine from playing Link's Awakening. Just barely. Like he was just asking, like, can you send me one?
Yeah, and Josh was very nice. Kayla, you introduced all of us to him.
I did.
And then
he's a good person. I was actually having a really hard time one day. I can't remember what it was, and he reached out to me and he went, "Hey, I see that you're in the community. I see you're having a hard time. I wrote this book. Let me give it to you." And I was like, no, you worked on that, no free thing. So I immediately went and I read it. Really good. Definitely recommend. Anyways, back to what I was talking about. So being so involved in the gaming community and working so hard in the gaming community, like I took a bit of a step back because like I work with Nintendo and I try to stream when I can, but I took a step back because I found the more I did it, the more I was like, I can't, like I'm exhausted with it. How do you keep it up? How do you keep going back to it and go, I'm passionate about video games when you're just so go all the time?
It's a combination of different things. And the other thing on top of that, because that's a very real emotion that everybody has to deal with. And if anybody tells you otherwise, they're lying to you. You just don't know anything. On top of dealing with that, but also dealing with, the payoff of dealing with all of it, which is not always, the best. And sometimes there's nothing that comes with it. Really, I love it because, again, I love the medium. I love, gaming as an art form, for various different reasons. Obviously, gaming as an entertainment art form for me and for all of you guys and everybody else listening to this as well. I think that I just love the conversation about it. I love the discussions that I have with it, with different people about it, whether it's, again, the games that I'm passionate about, games I don't know about, games that I'm rediscovering again, for another time, or anything associated with it. That's what really keeps me in the game about it all, at least, constantly doing stuff. And also, I've always feel like whether I go to a place like E3 or I go to another event or I'm around people, I always feel like I have something to prove because there's always going to be people that don't know who I am. There's a lot of people that don't know who I am, even though I've done a lot of different stuff that I want people to get something out of, but I always feel like I got to prove something as like, okay, you got to be 145% on top of what you're doing plus then some in order to make sure that like people actually see or even get a chance to care about what you do. One of the biggest challenges that I've had over the last couple of years for a couple different places that I've done work for is I've gone and done a lot of work seen or it just won't be talked about. Like I'm one of those people, unfortunately, again, I'm one of these guys that screams from the rooftops about all the stuff that he does on social media. Like I'm constantly putting my stuff on Twitter, constantly putting my stuff on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, etc. And even though I know that could get a little bit of, even for me, from other people, it's like everybody experiences that. But like that's one of the things that's part of the game. That's one of the things that's being part of this, because if you don't put it out there, if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't constantly try to represent what you're all about or represent what you're actually doing out here, nobody's going to care and nobody's going to see it. So the thing that kind of really keeps me in all of this, besides all that, is really when you have those moments, those little victories where something off. Like perfect example. This happened to me this last weekend when I went to Lumi. There was a guy that I met that was dressed in a Castlevania Trevor Belmont cosplay because of, for the Netflix series. Mm-hmm. He actually, again, when I went up to him, I just went up to him to say like, hey, you have a dope costume that's like really cool. And I get a picture and everything. I thought that was really dope. And he recognized me from the video that I did about Lumi prior year because he was looking at videos on what the con was all about. And it was my video that helped decide for him to come to this year. And I was like, wow, that's something that hardly anybody else will ever know about. Hardly anybody else will ever care. It mattered to me. That made a difference for someone, that actually helped out somebody in a way that not only was positive for them, but it was like somehow it made its way back to me. There's other moments too where I'll talk to different people. Like, again, here's another one I could think of. I went to the E2E conference down here in Miami, it was Broward, I'm sorry. It was down in Broward during the Ultimate Gamer event. And the E2E conference is an esports conference where people were going to talk about esports, but the business side of things, and my perspective was that I was coming at it from the media side as someone that's exposed to gaming and observing gaming through a different lens that these business people don't know. And one of the things that happened there was that there was a woman there that doesn't know much about esports, but has her son or her child that was getting into esports and wanted to have it as a career to compete on like Fortnite and other games in order to make money out of it. And she's like, okay, how can I actually support my kid in actually making this happen and understanding and being supportive of him? And she was like, I always feel like I'm always holding him back or I'm doing something wrong because I just don't get it. I'm trying to regulate him to actually make sure he does his real life stuff without compromising the things that he wants to be a part of. And one of the things that I told her and that she really appreciated was that never apologize for being a parent, because the fact that you're here talking about this stuff with us and asking about it is more than enough support that your kid needs on top of you doing what you do. Like that. And later on, she came and told me, had a real conversation about it. It's like, listen, I really need to hear that because to every other person that I've talked to just says like, oh, it's going through a phase. He's, doing kid things. He's just playing games to make sure, he's got to do real life stuff. It's like, no, you're the first person that said like, listen, I'm being a good parent out here and I'm actually caring about this stuff. And it was that type of emotion that really stuck with me. So it's little victories like that. Even though they're not big victories as of yet, because the big victory to me would be when I get to do this as a career where I make enough money to sustain myself and to do much more bigger and grander things. That's the big victory to me. But these little victories are like the little breadcrumbs that'll hopefully lead up to something like that. So it kind of keeps me, upbeat about it. It keeps me motivated about it, and all the other stuff along with it comes as well. The little feedback on social media, the comments on YouTube, and all these other places help out. But it's really those little things for me personally that really, sticks out to me. Hope that answers. I know that's a lot.
Yeah, that was
a really good answer.
It's heartwarming as hell.
I get that. I mean, I had my first situation actually a couple weeks ago. I'm in a Discord with, I call them 𝐘𝐨 because I don't know how to pronounce their name. And so I'm in their Discord just because they invited me. It's like a roleplay Discord. And I just kind of like hopped in kind of casually. And every now and then I'll kind of pop in. I'll chat with them. That's like, I don't really chat that often, but I pop in occasionally. And they're like, wow, like it's so nice to hear from someone that I consider like a celebrity in my mind to be like, hey, like I know what you're going through. I understand what you're hearing. And I was like, excuse me? I stream like once every 6 months. And they're like, yeah, but you're the person that like inspired me. You're the only person I bought bits for to donate. And I was like,
and you know something? This funny thing about that, a lot of people misunderstand and misuse that. A lot of people, a lot of content creators, the specter and the celebrity, quote unquote, of it. The reputation, the clout is what a lot of people consider it. And one of the things I've always tried to make an effort for me, and I see it in a couple other people as well, and I always hope for others to do it in some fashion too, was that to have a lot of reverence for that, to never abuse that, and to never take advantage of that in a bad way that will be at the expense of other people. And I see that sometimes way too often. And I think that if you get more content creators or more media people and more celebrities, personalities, quote unquote, out there that thought a little bit more like that, as opposed to what we see every once in a while, the community or the greater gaming community and even the YouTube and other entertainment communities would be a lot more better off, because there'll be people out there doing stuff that's going to help people along their way, as opposed to taking advantage and just trying to get theirs over.
Preach. No, it's true. So true. And I think, I don't know, people have heard me say it before, but like if you're in a position where you're a creator and you can, you're in a position to be able to do that sort of thing, you owe everything to your fans. You owe everything to those people that support you, right? So I never understood the attitude where people would get snooty about it, or like,
you want to know what it is? I'll tell you exactly what it is. And the problem is that not only do people want to get theirs, and when I say get theirs, I mean get ahead, whether it's money, Patreon donations, games, clout, reputation, access. For us in the games media, for a lot of websites that are smaller and they're not part of the bigger outlets, they like access because it allows them to do all this other stuff. That's what they get caught up on, as opposed to for the love of the craft, as well as also the love of building a community. I think the better content creators and the ones that you see, like the Greg Millers, like the Kyle Moriartys, like the Andre Rene's, and like, the Alana Pierces, and the list goes on. Those are people that care about not only their work and the passion of being a part of it all and the process of it, but also building the communities and interacting with those people that, again, appreciate what they do. Again, they don't abuse that relationship. They don't abuse that privilege, really is what it is, for being a part of this type of stuff. Because without them and without all that, we'd all be working really bad day jobs that was like not good, not fun, and not, appealing to us in our everyday lives. So those are the people that I feel like I give a lot of respect for, and I give a lot of, nods to, because they're doing it right. And that's the examples that a lot of other people out here that I see in various different facets of the community should actually take example from.
Yeah, with Greg and the rest of them, but mainly Greg, because I feel like he was taking maybe one of the biggest risks at the time. But
of course,
there was a lot of interviews and podcasts that he was doing whenever he had first left IGN, and they started kind of funny with the Game Over Greg show. And at first they were doing both of them, but because he was working at IGN and he had his own thing, they were only doing pop culture and movies and comics and stuff like that. They wouldn't talk about video games. And that was because IGN, from their words, IGN was basically like, well, if you're going to make a video about video games, or you're going to have a podcast about video games, why don't you do that for us? Which they already were doing that for them. They had, they did Game Scoop off and on, and then they also had the Podcast Beyond, which was their PlayStation podcast, and they were the editors for the PlayStation brand at IGN. But they eventually said, well, let's just take that risk and see if we can do our own thing on YouTube. That way we can talk about video games on YouTube, because that's what all of our commenters and fans and everyone on YouTube keep asking us, is why don't we talk about video games? And for the longest time they wouldn't say, because they didn't want people to get mad at IGN. So then they finally took that leap, and Greg said, I don't know, like, I know he said it in like a GameSpot interview and a bunch of others, that he was getting paid around like $100,000 a year at the time, which was because he was like one of the lead managers at IGN.
Because he was on Up at Noon. That's because he was the host. He was a producer. So I think he was a content producer for Up at Noon, on top of what he was doing else over there.
Yeah, so he left that pay plus, like, whatever kind of insurance and other beneficial stuff that they have at IGN, and basically like all of that's almost guaranteed every week, every month, or every year. Plus, he was just getting more and more popular with the rise of like gaming podcasts and stuff like that, and Podcast Beyond. Like, a lot of people knew what it was, but it was just getting more and more popular. But he left that guaranteed lifestyle that he had and took a risk and started his own thing. And that could have plummeted to where, like, you know, who would in their right mind would leave $100,000 a year plus good health insurance in America? Because I know some of you guys are in Canada. So, but good health insurance in America and everything. And like, it wasn't just him, but like he convinced his best friend who he was living with and two of their friends to do it. And like, they're living in San Francisco as well, which is one of the most expensive cities.
You want to know why that was,
in.
though? Why that was a good risk is because they banked on a community that they fostered. You know, a lot of content creators, a lot of other media personalities are complaining about certain stuff happening with, like, you know, YouTube or whatever else, but it really goes back to the communities that they fostered. And they fostered and grew a good community that not only promoted positivity, but also got it to a point where the community could almost like automate it, like, you know, self-sustain itself through positivity, and actually set that same example that they were going for. You know, and that's why they were able to do all that stuff and take such a big risk and have it pay off.
Yeah. Really quick, there was a Mo Chocolate, for those who don't know, in the chat. Official Mo Chocolate is his username. Yeah, you do. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a very great guy. He sung a lovely song to end the interview that I had with him a couple of weeks ago. So, some love to Mo for his $4 donation. I don't know if he meant to send. He sent $2 twice. I don't know if he meant to do that. Let us know if you meant to do that or not.
He's just double the hype. Because he said Breath of the Wild 2. I guess he was so hyped.
He's extra chocolatey.
Yeah.
Double chocolate.
Yeah, I had a wonderful conversation with him because he's another person who, because of YouTube, I went from just like being a fan of, because I seen him on PlayStation's The Gamer, and then like whenever I started talking to him, it was crazy to find out, because he's like, you're a fan of me, and like I'm a fan of what you do, so this is awesome. Because like we were like fans of each other, and then we became friends, and then we honestly had that interview planned for at least a year or two before it actually happened, because scheduling is just so bad. But then it finally happened, so I was really happy to do that. Do we have Daniel? Yeah. I feel like you were about to say anything. I don't know what else to say before we.
The tester, was it called? You said The Gamer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was The Tester.
Yeah, The Tester. Did I say The Gamer?
Yeah, you said The Gamer.
No, it was PlayStation's The Tester. Season 2 he was on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I
then,
was just confused for a second. I was like, is there another thing I don't know about?
He was on. Who was it? There's the one guy from Game Grumps. Ego Raptor was on season 3 of it. And then we talked about a weird, somewhat funny story about how Ego Raptor almost got kicked off because he was trying to act like his character or something like that, where his name Ego, he was trying to act like he had a huge ego. And I was like, well, you're not going to kick me off because I bring in the views and stuff. And they were like, no.
He was like, oh, word? Okay.
But Dennis in the chat gives another 20. Is that from Czech Kronos?
I don't know what that converts to in US.
I think it comes out to like about like maybe $2 each time, because I remember getting like we were all like, stop donating so much, and then he's like, no, it's like $2. So
it is about that. But.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you to N60 for Josh, who Tubes mentioned earlier, because he was it didn't go as planned, but he was very, very busy during E3, and he volunteered to come and record the IGN interview that I had with Per Schneider, the co-owner, co-creator, or something like that.
Co-founder
of IGN.
Co-founder of IGN.
Yeah, and he's also on the. I feel kind of embarrassed because I think during the interview I said that I loved GameScoop, but there's like someone else there that was on a GameScoop. He does the Nintendo. Yeah. But he does the Nintendo voice chat podcast, and then sometimes he does go on the GameScoop podcast. But we got to talk about some Ura, not necessarily Ura Zelda, but Zelda 64 stuff, because on the channel we're always asked about like beta Ocarina of Time stuff, and he actually got to play beta Ocarina of Time. So because he
early demos.
Yeah, he got to play at an event where Miyamoto and other people at Nintendo were there, like walking around the room while they were playing the beta version of Ocarina of Time, and then they sent them around like San Francisco or LA or wherever it was. There was like a small portion of the city where they had what's it called, like a quest of their own. What's it called? Where like you're on a scavenger hunt. Yeah, kind of like that, but it was more of a scavenger hunt that they had to do, like you're on a quest to get items and stuff around the city and stuff. But anyways, does anyone have any final things to talk about? Do you have anything, JJ, that you want to talk about before you?
One of the things I was going to mention before to Chew, because I said it before, was that at E3, some of the things you didn't get to see, even though I was like ridiculously busy. I mean, the times you just saw me when I was running around, that was me going from like appointment to appointment and then just saying like, hey to you guys, because I had like that half an hour to an hour like interval between places. And by the way, that's to go from the West Hall to the South Hall back like a ping pong ball between the two halls.
For people that don't know, that's insanely long ways.
Because it is a lot of walking. And then the crazy thing about this year when I saw you guys was that I had something to do almost every hour. I had to be someplace to go see games. And granted, there were some big games I had to go see. I mean, if I have to go run across the convention center to go play Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'm running across the convention center to go play Final Fantasy VII Remake. Things like that were happening frequently. And that's how E3 always is. And I could understand, with the N64 dude, where he, again, running around like crazy and then taking that moment to go do something, because E3 is hectic for everybody. Even if you're not doing a lot of stuff, it is absolutely insane and crazy, and it's always that. And the more people that are there, the more hectic that it gets when you have to get to this for appointments. So it was still fun, though. It's still part of the whole craziness that's still fun.
I so appreciate the grind that all these content creators do. Like, you see all the time, like N64 Josh, he's up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym and start his day, work his day job, spend time with his family, and still create content. And I'm like, dang, I can barely work an 8-hour day at work without having to go take a 5-hour nap.
That's when you need the big cup of coffee.
I don't know how he does it.
So, JJ.
And that's why every time I'm streaming, you see me there just like, drinking that coffee.
It's a good cup of coffee.
That's a good cup of coffee.
JessX in the chat says that you are a samurai because of all of your swords on your wall. Can you confirm or deny this?
My keyblades, my gun blade from Final Fantasy VIII, and then I don't know if you can see it over here. There's a ice sword from Mortal Kombat, Sub-Zero's ice sword.
Yeah,
cool.
That's right there. That it lights up, which is pretty cool.
So, are you confirming or denying that you are a samurai?
The no comment sounds like it's yes.
I am samurai. Yes. I am Klingon. I am what is it? Gerudo. Since we're Zelda, Zelda podcast over here, or Himalayan, I should say. Technically.
I had a very important question on Instagram earlier: Zora or Goron? Where would you?
Which one?
Zora or Goron?
I would take a Zora because they probably look nicer and swim because it's really cool. Gorons, they're like the Gorons are like the big linebacker defensive, but like you don't want to be a Goron because you don't want to take the hits. You want them to take the hits for you. So I'd rather be a Zora. And plus, also we got sushi as Zoras. Okay, we got fish. I mean, who doesn't want sushi? You know what I'm saying?
Me? I pick Goron.
You pick Goron?
I pick Goron. They're lovable. They're just big, lovable. Big guys, big lovable dudes. They're just everyone's your bro. Life's great. Gorons love life. That's all I'm saying. Like you meet a Goron and they all love life. So they got something good going on there.
The beginning of Twilight Princess is like it's questionable.
Yeah, but then they sort their stuff out.
Because that's the only game where they literally punch you.
Yeah, they're going for blood. They want you dead. That's a fall.
Punched to death by Goron. They do it. They will punch you to death. Literally.
But it's because you don't love life enough. They love life.
That's the last thing you want. You don't want to get dunked on by a Goron.
No.
I think that the better question, Jesse, was how does a Goron shave?
Oh yeah. That was the
They
one other day on
don't.
Twitter.
And Danny
Look at them.
said something
With
about
dynamite.
what part.
What part of
Oh yeah, because like a lot of people.
That's literal manscaping.
I was gonna say the back because that's lumpy.
They just
How do you-
roll.
How do you shave in
They
that?
get like a really like when you get like a knife, like a knife sharpening
Oh, a grinder.
or something. Yeah, exactly. So they just they curl up and roll on that.
And you know what
Yeah.
the shaving cream is? Cement. Liquid cement.
Yeah.
So there was
And then they could eat it too. So
there
it's
was an
perfect.
answer to that I kind of questioned because a couple of people answered the same way. Okay, so here it is. Like some people said with a big knife with tiny pickaxes,
Mhm.
𝐓𝐼𝐬𝐭𝐼𝐬. But then some people, like there were multiple people commented pumice.
Pumice.
I don't understand the pumice thing.
Pumice is a type of rock.
That sounds
Like a
really
volcanic
suspect.
rock.
I'm not gonna lie.
It's like a.
I was thinking of hummus.
Hummus, by the
Yeah,
way.
I was thinking of
I was thinking of
hummus.
hummus too. That's food. That's good.
It's like a volcanic rock.
Lather that on, the hair comes off with
Oh
it.
my God.
So like
It's Nair,
there-
you didn't even know.
yeah, everyone had different answers for it, but then there was a few people that was like pumice, and I'm like, what? Why is that? Why are so many people saying pumice? Like,
I still like dynamite for Goron.
is this
shaving.
actually in the game and I just don't know
Dynamite
about it?
Just
Dynamite?
put it there. Hope for the best.
The
Right.
what is it? The giant kegs, the big kegs
Yeah, the
from Majora's
powder
Mask. Yeah, the powder kegs. That's it. All right. So we've been going on for about an hour and 10 minutes. We haven't even gotten to
Oh, no.
our first news story. I was expecting that to go like 20, 30 minutes maybe.
We got too much to say.
My
Yeah,
bad.
a lot of
No, it's
a lot of
It's
good
your
stuff
good.
there. Yeah, we'll be able to like break that up into like a two-parter, kind of like what we did with the interview with Mo. So Daniel, do you want to take the news story there?
Sure. Well, this is an article. Comes from
first
Eurogamer.
it says like
Oh,
it'll have the title and then it'll like say "and this." The "and this." The way that the different websites worded it, I thought it was two separate news stories, but it was about the same thing. So instead of having them as like two separate news stories, I just blocked them as whatever the title was and this, because they're talking about the same thing. But you can just skip the "and this" thing and just do the Eurogamer thing. I think it's from Eurogamer, at least.
I feel like you just made me like 20 times. I just have
No
a
idea
news
what
article.
he's talking about.
Yeah, just do the news article.
Ah, you broke my brain.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
It's all good. So this is this is an article that comes from Eurogamer.net. That's a website. Report: Nintendo wants to bring canceled 3DS games to Switch. Plans could include a canceled 3DS Fire Emblem game, which really it just makes sense.
Wait,
guys.
Daniel,
It can't-
I'm
it just
stopping you.
makes sense.
I'm
Okay.
stopping you
Yes,
because
I've been
I
stopped.
said something about 2 minutes ago on the podcast,
What?
and I just now got tagged. Well, hold on.
What?
I'll
He's
cover
got
the person.
tagged.
I'll cover the person's name.
Who? What?
But I was tagged on
That's just
Facebook
Uh-oh.
because what is it?
don't punch yourself because you don't love life and
Yeah, the Goron quote.
That's funny.
I didn't want to put the person's name up for people to like search. them or
Gorons will
whatever.
punch you for not loving life enough. Jesse 2019.
Yeah.
yeah,
It was
punch you
very-
right to death.
Start
So
loving
anyways,
your life. I keep
finish
eating my
finish what you were saying. Sorry about that, Daniel.
Yes,
I just
that's
wanted
okay.
to. It was just
So the article
hilarious.
reads: This is an article by Vicky Blake